with well-being and happiness longer, and we're going to be productive. We're going to not stop working at 65. Either we're going to have encore careers, or we're going to continue working part-time or full-time, or we're going to do a lot of community volunteer work. Because the one thing that boomers want, and I bet all of you can relate to this, what they want is to lead a meaningful life in their older age. They don't want to be age segregated, set aside. They don't want to be separated from their children, grandchildren, and their friends. You know, my parents' generation, my parents, they just went to Florida and toasted down there as many summers and winters as they could, because they were interested in the weather. The boomers are not so interested in the weather as they are in the climate of the place. Yes. And so lots of people now would prefer the 4 seasons to one and want to experience them all. But in order to be productive and conscious aging, you know, facing aging and dealing with it in a way that is rational rather than irrational, which is our old social construction of aging, what's that? We pretend that we're not aging. And even if you say to somebody, hey, big guy, you know, you and I look like we might be aging a little bit. Well, he might get up and punch me out for that. It's like an insult. You know, anybody who suggests that they are aging, they don't want it. So what happens is that we hide our heads, so to speak, under a bushel, all as long as we can. And then we're about my age, we look up and say, gee whiz, you know, who is that old guy there in that mirror? And so it's denial and surprise is kind of the social construction of how we handle aging. We just ignore it. And dying, of course, nothing to do with that. But we're going to be looking at it very differently. Now, most of us want to live in where we live right now, forever. I do. I've been living in my house out in the country for 40 years. But in about 5 years, I'm going to have to move. I'm 69, my wife is older. And it's a young person's work out there, and right now I'm just fine. But the minute I'm not just fine, I'm not going to be able to live there, even though that's what I want. And that's what almost everybody wants. So most of us eventually, somehow or another, are going to have to move. And a lot of people want to downsize. A lot of people can't move. Can't move. And given that, just put this, whatever I'm doing now is just part of a larger program to address aging all across Lawrence and Douglas County. Because a lot of people cannot move. They don't have the resources to move. They're barely making it in their little tiny houses today. And so we have to work with them to create this kind of neighborliness that occurred in this intergenerational community, and the Village Lawrence is doing that now, and I've been working with them. And we have to do what Independence Inc. does. We have to remove obstacles in houses which people can't move from, so that the caregivers and so that the residents can live there longer. We have to get them to live there longer because we can't afford that nursing home. And so all of us say, well, I like the location, the design and layout is okay, but not so many people say that the size is fine. Not so many people say that it's accessible for people with disabilities. Many fewer people say it's easy to get around in their house. So lots of people are going to be moving for various reasons, probably the 67%. The 33% with no resources, we have to work on where they live right now as a part of this. It's such a big problem, though, we'll have to do a lot of different things. Now, what do the boomers want? Here's what that developer asked me. He said, well, I don't know what they want. He said, look, I'll give you $100,000. You can buy furniture, you can bring in people from all across the country, which I have, and I want you to get as much information out there about what boomers want and how developers would respond to that, and it's such a big problem that it's not proprietary. Well, so I brought in all these people, I've read books, and we have lots of faculty at KU who work in gerontology, but they're like molecules. They don't connect often. You've got 30 or 40 people who sometimes connect, but there's no galvanizing tissue that brings them together, but we have lots of faculty. And so putting them together around this interdisciplinary approach, this think tank approach, bringing them in and connecting them to people who come from Stanford and North Carolina and other places, we begin to galvanize around the idea, how are we going to respond to boomers and what do they want? Here's what boomers want. Not everybody wants it, but it almost always comes up. 95% of the time, the first thing boomers say is that I want to be close to nature. I want to be close to nature. Well, okay. I live in the woods, so nature to me is very different than nature to you, I bet. Or it might be different than nature to you. For some people, a potted plant in the bedroom is nature. For some people, a nice park walking is nature. For some people like me, 400 acres of woods, that's nature. But there's been a great deal of study done on nature and its effect on human beings. Scientific studies in the last 30 years. There's a book called Your Brain on Nature. If you have Kindle, you can get it for $8. It summarized the scientific studies in all kinds of ways about nature. Nature has very salutary effects on us. It reduces anxiety, for example. And it has basic kind of curing processes, maybe psychological too. You know, why do people say, I just like to get my hand in the dirt? Well, now they've done a number of studies to suggest that getting your hand in the dirt is a damn good thing for you. So why do we want to get back to nature? Well, E.O. Wilson calls it biophilia. He calls it an innate need to relate to other living things in the world. And he says we've only been doing it for, well, he goes beyond 10,000 years. So he says we all want to go back to nature. And he also says it is acultural. No matter what culture you go to in the United States, nature is a key. So they want to be close to nature. 95% of them say they want to be close to nature. Okay, so we have to pay attention to that. They also want to have walkable communities to core services. Walking is the only exercise that positively, absolutely correlates with health so far that we've been able to find. You know, not smoking is not like exercise, but walking does, and the boomers did it. Now, they don't do it necessarily. And the other thing mitigating is that who says they're going to live longer with the obesity and all that sort of problems coming on? So everything is statistical, but 100% of them say they want a walkable community and core services. Large percentages of them want continuing education. Kind of interesting. They're supposedly the most educated group, and they still want more of it. Well, they are, and they aren't the most educated group in certain ways, because I remember teaching French before the exams to most of my fraternity brothers in the 60s when I went to Baker. You know, they basically were there to have a good time, lots of them, and they had a good time. They got a reasonable education, but they really didn't work hard at it. And recently at somebody's retirement party, I graduated in '66, the guy who retired came up to me and said, Dennis, what am I going to do? I never studied anything. I got my business degree and I've worked all these years, but I don't have any base to work from. One of them asked me, well, I just don't know a lot. For example, what is history? You know, it's sort of asking, well, what's oxygen or what's air? You know, what is history? So they have a great deal of interest in further educating themselves, and they're very interested in mentoring younger people. They know they know that they have all these educated, knowledge-based resources plus their money, and they know that the generational equation means that you have to give it to the next generation eventually, right? Everybody's going to get it. I tell my students when we get to this point, I say, look, if you don't know these boomers, they're not going to give you their money, right? They're not. They're not. And we just get down to it. I say, look, it's not only that they have money, but they have a lot of other things to give you. And part of it is just mentoring. At K-State, for example, they've got a great mentoring program between K-State and Meadowlark Hills. They have 50 mentors. All of them have 2 or 3 students. And it's going gangbusters. So kids need mentoring too, and the boomers need to do it. So it's about education. They want to leave a legacy. They want to leave a legacy. Okay. They don't want to be segregated aside by age. They don't want to be stigmatized by age. They don't want us to design something that is so specifically for an older person, the minute you see it, you say, old. If it isn't done for all generations, you're going to have trouble selling it. But here's a grandpa over in Lakeview in Overland Park, and every day he reads to these kids. Look, I'll tell you this. These little kids and that old man up there are more connected psychologically than you would imagine. Almost more than any other connection and generation. They're having great fun. And you can see the generativity that is going on here. You can see it. And so they want to stay with their kids, their grandkids, and their friends, and they don't want to be segregated by age, and they want to be connected to younger people. People come up to me and say, the last thing I want to do is to just live with people my age. So that's very important. And of course, there's well-being. They're very focused on health and well-being. There's no question about it. And whether or not that will actually be carried out in an effective way is a question, but if you're going to do this kind of intergenerational thing, then you have to have a lot of planned places, intentional programs, and unintentional things that will happen in order to get people back to where we were before. Here's an example of we had a speaker from Berkeley last week, and she lives in a 1,000 square foot house and has a little front yard. She decided, I'm not going to put grass out there. I'm going to put a ping pong table out there with benches, and I'll put the ping pong balls there, and I'll put the ping pong paddles there, and I'm just going to sit there and wait. But you know what happened?
Change the ball.
You know what happened, yeah. The kids, everybody was there. They've been playing ping pong forever in their front yard, and that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. Putting together grandmothers and grandchildren, or grandfriends and grandchildren, is very important to the extended family. Psychologists tell us that the strongest emotional force in the extended family is the grandmother. Grandfathers got it too, but the grandmother is special. You're shaking your head, I bet you're thinking about your grandmother. Yep. I can tell you the sweetest times, the earliest memories in my life are with my grandmother. Because I was in a family of 4 boys, and my mom, I don't know how she did it. She did it, but she sent us serially to one of the grandmother's houses because she knew that we needed special attention. Each one of us needed very special attention. And that's what the grandmother does, or the grandparent, is to help develop the emotional foundation upon which this young person's life must be built. Is there for that person specifically, just for that person. And that is hard to replace. In fact, it's almost impossible to replace that relationship. So we have to, for example, build let's say, a single-family dwelling and a granny flat that's connected. You know, the zoning says, no, 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 no granny flats. Well, those things have to go away, and the city is ready to do that. I can't tell you how many people who need that sort of thing to make their family go, and also they need to bring their grandmothers in closer who have disabilities of some sort or another. So the generativity goes both ways. Here's what it does, really. This gentling and acculturation of children by elders, and assistance and affection given to elders by children. The special thing, support given by elders to adults, the ones sandwiched in. Poor woman who could barely, you know, her kids couldn't really get what they needed from their mother because she was so busy. So we're looking for this new way of, old way of rethinking what we're doing. And bringing in lots and lots of people, lots of smart people, have helped us do that. Now this is an old, smart, and productive generation, so yes, I got to get done. So we have to use them. You guys are not going to be able to retire. And not only that, you're pretty technologically advanced. You know, well over half of us get on the web and the net every day. You know, here it is. The boomers, 46% were internet users in 2009. And the millennials go up a lot further, but part of the interaction is learning from kids how to stay connected to the computer world. My grandkids are the ones who bring stuff to me that I really need, but we're fairly technologically advanced. We're open to it. We've been using computers most of our careers, and we're going to do it. Now, we have, in addition to nature, we have technological advances that will help us if we need those kinds of technological advances in smart homes. We also, you put together these technological advances with community-based nursing programs, and then you really show how you reduce the cost of medical care in the United States. I've been working a lot with our friends at MU. They're about 10 years ahead of us, by the way, on this and a lot of other things. Maybe not basketball, but at least I've been working a lot with them. They have the kind of thing that we're trying to work on, except it's age segregated. Most of the people are over 75. They do community-based nursing and technological interventions, you know, predictive systems that are there. They've reduced the cost of health care per resident per month $1,200. And why they're interested in us is because we and other researchers believe that if you go into the intergenerational situation, it's going to be even cheaper. And that's why MU is really interested in us. Besides that, it fits my equation. They have brought in $50 million of research contracts on a connection between the university and a skilled nursing home. And that's what I'm up to too, is building this new infrastructure. Because KU cannot compete unless it doesn't do what we're trying to do, which is to set up a living laboratory in this new community. And we have about 30 or 40 faculty members who want to move research space out there, and the developer will design and build the research space, and what KU has to do is move in the faculty, students, and programs. Now that's just a part of it. But we have to be more forward-looking in terms of preventive care, and we'll do it through technology, we'll do it through community-based systems, and we'll do it through social systems. Last year, Georgetown, Texas was named the best intergenerational community in the United States. They've been working on their project for 15 years. They've never built a thing except for social relationships, and that they built. No architecture can do that, but it can help us. So we're going to use automated systems and more and more advancing technology to help us bend this arc of aging. For example, now they have a little system they put underneath your mattress and just look at your sleep patterns and how restless you are, and look at some vital signs. They set up an algorithm and sort of say, okay, this is your normal walking pace. This is how you normally work. And then they can put that data into fall detection systems, early illness detection systems, and they can tell you 30 days before you know that you're sick. So you don't have to take it. You know, you don't have to use this technology if you don't want it. It's kind of a cable thing, but you can use it. We'll also be doing universal design, obstacle-free design. That's very important because you, ma'am, are in your wheelchair, and if we have 5-foot radiuses in every place in your kitchen, for example, you can use your kitchen fully. If we do the kinds of cabinetry right, so you don't have to reach up high, if you can pull things out, if light switches are down instead of high, if counters are lower instead of high, you know, they're all things that have already been worked out for 70 years in universal design. I've showed graduate students in architecture a universal design kitchen, and I said, stand out here and see what you think. Tell me if you see anything. They didn't see anything different. If you don't see anything different, then it's perfectly designed. So we're blending these, this arc of aging all along in the 20th century. No telling what will happen to the 21st century, but the arc is still a kind of misery curve down, right? You start out in independent living, you go to assisted living, they move you down, you go to skilled nursing, they move you down. Each time you move down physically and psychologically, you have a problem. But at MU, this is their curve. And then all of a sudden, you know what that means. But instead of living as my father did, who said this is no way to live, for the last 7 years he lived this misery curve. He could have lived this well-being curve. And that's what's already happening at MU. They're already showing that among their residences. So we know that we can do it, and we think that with intergenerational living and other changes, this may go out very differently. But it just means that there are going to be lots and lots of older people in our society, and we're going to be very interested in them. Now, our preferred site right now is a 60-acre site out here on West 6th Street. You can see that here's the famous Rock Chalk Park, so we're right connected to it. Right here is Fritzl and Schwada's new Mercado that's going to be developed. Here's a new golf course. You can see the City Aquatic Center, the high school, the community theater. This is no longer out at the edge of town. It's in the middle of an exploding new point in our city. You know, our city is already polycentric.